Hi everyone. So this lesson we are going to be talking about credit cards, which is hopefully something that you're interested in, seeing as you're 16 or so years old now, 16, 17, and you can be 18 years old and get a credit card. So whether I recommend that or not, I'll teach you about credit cards first and then you can decide. So list some pros and cons of having a credit card, of some things that you might know already. So what would one benefit be of having a credit card? You can buy something now without having the cash or without having the funds, I'll even say. So that could mean I don't have much money in my bank account right now. Let's say today is Wednesday and I'm going to be paid on a Friday, right? So I know I'm getting paid in 2 days, but I need to purchase whatever it is now, a birthday present for somebody for $50 or whatever it is. So I can put it on my credit card and put that $50 on my credit card. And then when I get paid on Friday, I can go ahead and take the money out of my bank account online, right? And pay my credit card back. So that is a benefit. We'll talk about how that can also be a con, obviously, but right now we're just looking at the pros. So you are able to buy something without even having the money in your bank account. You can defer payment for items, meaning I can buy it right now, put it on my credit card and take it home, and technically you've never paid for it, right? You're able to defer, to delay the payment until a later date and take something home now that you technically haven't paid for yet, right? You don't have to carry cash on you. That's also with a debit card, but that's still a pro with a credit card. So you don't have to carry cash. Though I don't know. What about this class? Does this class carry any cash, or are you guys all debit cards now? I know with myself, I basically never have cash on me anymore because I use my debit or credit card for everything. And one reason why I use my credit card is this next pro. Some cards, I'm not going to say all, I would say probably most. Some cards, credit cards, have incentives and rewards. Let me just finish writing that and then I can explain. So my credit card gives me points when I use it. It actually gives me like real money that adds up on the card. And then at the end of the year, or if anytime I wanted to, I can go in and cash that amount out and I get free money. And the only way I'm going to get free money is if I don't pay interest on that credit card, right? If I use that credit card and every time you put something on the credit card, you have this, it's really not a month. It's really probably like 3 weeks to pay it off. So every month you have to pay off your credit card in full. And if you don't pay off your credit card in full, then you're charged interest on the amount that you still owe. So just for example, let's say a 20-year-old, got their first credit card. Usually it has a lower limit of probably $500, I would think, to start. It could even be $300. But let's say you go out and you rack up $400 onto that credit card just by going to the mall and shopping because you're kind of going crazy, right? That you have this credit card for the first time. Then in a couple weeks, you're going to be emailed or sent in the mail your balance. And it says, hi, you owe us $400. And there's always a minimum payment. You don't have to give us this full $400. So let's say this date was, say it's around Christmas time. So let's say this is December 1st. And then let's say December 10th, your statement comes in the mail saying that you owe $400 and you need to pay us by December 20th. So just explain how it works. If you go ahead and you pay the entire $400, you go into your bank account, take the money out of your account online and transfer it into your credit card and pay the $400, obviously a little bit before that date because you need a couple days, right, for it to go through online and for it to get actually paid onto the credit card. So let's say you pay it December 17th and you pay $400, and then on the 20th you go back into your credit card account online and you see that the balance is zero. So if you pay $400, now your balance is zero. That's perfectly fine. You have not paid any interest. You've used the credit card to give you 3 or so weeks to pay off, and then you did pay off the full balance, and you don't owe anything. It was the same thing as you paying the $400 in the store. Now, the only benefit is, and this is what I do pay off my balance every single month. I never pay interest, is it gives me those free points. So let's say every time I put money on my card, it gives me 2% or 3% or 4% cash back. Also, some cards will give you extended warranty. So if you're buying like headphones or something like that, right, at Best Buy, and it gives you a 1-year warranty, you have to check and pick the right credit card. But your credit card or my credit card gives me up to an extra year warranty on that product. So now those headphones don't have 1-year warranty, they have a 2-year warranty. So if something happened to those headphones at a year and a half in, they break, the sound isn't coming out of the left ear or something like that, I would call my credit card company. And obviously I'd still have to have my receipt, right? Prove when I bought it, send it to them, and then they would deal with it. And then they would whether reimburse me or get me another pair. But let's say for rewards, what else could you have? It also gives you, let's say when you're renting a car and you have to have renter's car insurance and things like that, some credit cards will provide you with the renter's car insurance, and you don't have to pay the extra insurance to them. It's already included on your credit card if you use your credit card, obviously, to pay for that rental car. Things like trip cancellation and lost luggage at an airport. There are some credit card companies that cover that, so that if your luggage is lost, you go through the credit card company and they will deal with that, or giving you a set amount of money to buy a set of clothes for a couple days and things like that. What else? I'm just trying to think for points. Some give you extra money or extra points when you spend money on gas at the gas station or at the grocery store or at restaurants is usually where you get the most points. And it just depends. There are credit cards that are travel credit cards. So if maybe you're not going to get married till you're 30 years old, and for 10 years you're going to travel, or 5 years after university or whatever, right? Then every time you use that credit card, you're getting points specifically for like a flight. So then whatever plane is associated with that credit card, like Air Canada or something like that, or WestJet or whatever, then you would have, I've racked up $1,000 for free on my credit card. I can take a $1,000 flight somewhere for free with Air Canada. And again, it's only free if you're paying off your balance every single month, because as soon as you start to pay interest, if you're paying $20 of interest every month, then every month $20 comes off of that $1,000 that you got for free. And then it's going to end up being that those points don't mean anything because you're paying more money in interest usually, right? So it's not worth it to get rewards if you're going to pay interest. It's usually not worth it. So let's go back to this example. If I paid off my balance in full, if I don't pay off my balance in full, and by December 20th here, I decide to pay, I only have $100 that I can pay. I need money for my hydro bill, my gas bill, my rent or my mortgage, groceries. I'm going to buy these people Christmas presents, and you decide I'm going to put $100. Now it'll give you a minimum payment. It'll say you have to pay us on $400. You have to pay us $30 or $50. Absolutely have to. If you don't pay that minimum payment, if you don't pay that $50 by December 20th, so a couple days early, then you will absolutely screw over your credit, because you're showing that I'm going to put things onto my credit card and I won't even make a minimum payment. And then you won't get a car loan in the future. You won't get approved for a mortgage in the future. If you want to wreck your credit, that's exactly how you would do it. So you absolutely 100% have to pay the minimum that they're telling you to pay. And we'll look at a credit card statement after this to give you an example, in order to keep your credit looking good. So this person paid, let's say, more than the minimum, right? They paid as much as they could. They paid the 100. So what happens to that $300? Just to say. So now that $300 is now accumulating interest. So now you're paying interest on that $300, and interest rates on credit cards used to be 19%, 19.5%. Now they're probably 22%. There's some credit cards out there that are 28% interest, which is that's so much interest. That's over a quarter of your purchase that you're going to be paying in interest. So just to kind of explain how that goes. And if you have any further questions after, just make sure to ask me, because this is something, it's a real life scenario, right? That I want you guys to make sure you understand exactly how credit cards work. So now let's go back here to the con list. So I can buy something now without having the funds. So maybe what's a negative aspect of that? Kind of like buying things that you can't afford. So let's say spending more. Spending more than you can afford. Because again, if you have $500 on your credit card, but you know that month you can only afford $100, but you went and put that $400 on your credit card and bought something, well, now you're buying more than you can afford. And then you can get, I'm just going to say here, you can quickly get into trouble, meaning get into debt. And once you get into debt, it is so hard to get out. So spending more than you can afford, which can quickly kind of skyrocket and cycle out of hand, right? You can defer payment of the items. So again, back to you can get bad credit if you don't pay the minimum balance. Right? So you can defer payment, but if you start not paying your balance, then you're going to ruin your credit. You don't have to carry cash. I don't really see a con to that other than back here, not having the cash means you could spend more money. Some cards have incentives. Well, some cards also have fees. So if you don't get enough points to cover those fees, so what I mean is I'm thinking about that airline card, like a card for travel. Most of those cards cost about $150 a year. So you're paying $150 annual rate. So every year, you're going to have to owe, not just one time, every single year, you have to owe $150 to have this special credit card. And if you happen to not use it too much, right? Let's say you have to put it in the freezer because you've been using it too much and it's getting out of control, and then you put it in the freezer for 6 months, maybe you're not earning that $150 back in those rewards and points. So then all you're doing is paying money for a card and not getting that money back out. You haven't even earned $150 in free travel to fly anywhere. Then what's the point, right? Now, for some people, it can work great, right? But I'm just giving you the downside of it, right? Some cards have fees, and there's interest charged, right? There's interest charged. That's a CH, interest charged on unpaid balances. Whatever you don't pay, again, by the due date in the 3 weeks, whatever you don't pay is charged interest. So interest charged on unpaid balances if it's not paid in full. Okay, so you might want to take a picture of that. We're just going to continue on. So an overdue balance is an amount that remains unpaid after the due date has passed. So if by the due date, again, you don't pay the full balance, whatever is remaining is your overdue balance. It's still due, obviously, and it's overdue now because you haven't paid it in full. There is a grace period, which is, like I said, that like 3-week timeline where you can charge something on your card and maybe you'll have 3 weeks until it's due, the payment is due. So the length of time during which no interest is charged. So you do have a little bit of a grace period. So let's look at this example. I can zoom in a little bit. Malik's credit card payment was due on January 14th. So if he didn't pay the balance in full by January 14th, he would have interest, right? He made his payment on February 5th at a bank machine. So again, right away, if you didn't make that minimum payment, the amount they said you absolutely have to pay by January 14th, and he's making it February 5th, he's already ruining his credit. That is a bad, bad move. And he pays it at the bank machine. 4 days are required to process the transaction. Now, with technology now, it's usually about 2 days or so, but you never know. Like, let's say it was Thanksgiving weekend, so you've got Saturday, Sunday, and Monday is a holiday, right? That's why they say just to be safe, pay it 4 days ahead, just to make absolutely sure. So let's say it takes 4 days for this payment to go through. So February 5th, he made the payment, the bank doesn't actually get it, and the credit card doesn't actually get paid till February 9th. Malik's credit card offers a 7-day grace period before interest is charged. That would have been before January 14th. When they give you a due date, your payment is due January 14th. That 7-day grace period was already before that date. Okay, so how many days will Malik be charged interest? So we don't need to know what his interest will be. They haven't given us any numbers or how much he put on his credit card, but just for how many days is he going to be charged interest? So let's see if we can figure this out. He didn't pay it on time, so interest is charged from January 14th. So let's just write that down so we know interest is going to be charged from January 14th since it wasn't paid that day. So he made the payment on February, so let's say they got payment February 9th, right? Because February 5th plus the 4 days. So they didn't get the payment till February 9th. So how many days would that be? So how many days are in January? So in the month of January, we have 31 days. It wasn't due for the first 14 days. So 31 minus 14 is 17, right? 15 to 30 plus an extra 1 on that side and 1 on that side. So that's 17 days of interest for January, and then plus the 9 days of February. So 17 plus 9 is 26. So therefore, Malik will be charged interest for 26 days. I mean, that's a long time to be paying. Every time you don't pay the balance, what you bought is getting more and more and more expensive, if that makes sense to you. Let's look at a different type of example here. On this credit card, on a certain credit card, the minimum monthly payment required. So when the banks do come up with what your minimum is, they honestly do it this way. They say that it's the greater of either $25 or 3.5% of your balance on the card, of the money that you've charged on the card. So let's determine the minimum payment owed on each balance. So let's say this month you racked up $350.85. Now again, the credit card company has software, the computer does it for them, but this is literally what they do. So what's 3.5% of that balance? So 3.5%, again, as a decimal, is 0.035. So we're going to take 0.035 of means multiply $350.85, and that is $12.28. So if the credit card company said you owe us 3.5% of what you've put on the card, then you would owe $12.28. But that's not enough for them. They have whatever is bigger. Is that number bigger, or is 25 bigger? So therefore, this person has to pay $25 minimum payment for that month. Now this is a much larger amount here. Let's say that they owed $4,106.82. That doesn't mean that they racked that up, let's say, in 1 month. They might have left this balance on their card for the last 4 months, right? And slowly it keeps growing because they haven't been paying the full amount off. So again, 0.035 times 4106.82. What is 3.5% of that balance is $143.74. So again, what's bigger, that number or 25? Well, definitely this number. So therefore, your minimum is that. And so you can see you might not have to pay as low as $25 a month. If you have a higher balance on your card, your minimum is going to be higher every month. And then you can see how people get into trouble if they keep racking up their card. And then it's like, oh, I don't even have $150 to pay. Well, if you don't have $150 to pay, right, then you're not even paying the minimum. After a certain amount of time of you not paying, I don't know how long, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, they'll eventually cut off your card, right? And then that looks even worse for your credit, right? Well, not only does it prove that they weren't paying their balance, so their credit score is so low, but we actually had to cancel their card and stop their card, then that looks really, really bad on your part. So now let's take 0.035 and multiply that by 1163.63. And what's 3.5% of $1,100? I get $40.73. So then again, that's bigger than 25. So that would be what you would owe. Therefore, you owe a minimum balance of $43.73. There's one more example there on the back. And then the rest of the sheet I'll show you there talks about analyzing and looking at a credit card statement. So this part here, see the statement? The questions here, what is the date of the statement? What is your interest rate? What's the new balance? That's just making sure that we can read all these things off of a credit card statement. So have this in front of you, and we'll be answering these questions in the next video. I'll stop this video so it's not too long, and then we'll do another video analyzing. I've got 3 credit card statements we can look at. So if we look at this one, interest is charged daily, and it is on an overdue credit card balance. So calculate the amount of interest that Sam is going to pay if his credit card has an overdue balance of $1,862. So all that means is every month he could have been making his minimum payment. Every month, that's fine. His credit is still good, but he wasn't able to pay the full balance. So after a few months now, it's been adding up to this amount. Interest is charged for 20 days. So it takes him 20 days to get paid, from work and pay that off to zero. So he's going to be charged interest for 20 days, and his rate of interest is 21.5%. And that's a pretty reasonable, that's a pretty honest number. That is what interest is nowadays. So let's calculate what his interest is going to be, right? Calculate the amount of interest that Sam is going to pay. So Sam's interest rate, this is annual, meaning per year, right? But we can't do per year when we're only being charged for 20 days. So we need to change this annual interest rate, which is 0.215, right? 21.5 divided by 100. And we have to divide that by 365 to get the daily rate. So if I take 0.215, divide by 365, I get 0. I believe it's 1, 2, 3 zeros, and then a 589. So this is our daily rate because we divided it by 365 days of the year. So then let's write out our formula. Do I know my future value? No. I know my present value. The amount I owe presently is $1,862. There's my 1.000589. And what's my term? This is daily, right? So N would be how many days? Would be 20 days now, because this formula has now been corrected to be per day. And when I plug that into my calculator, I get $1,884.06. So that is not my interest over the 20 days, right? If you think about it, I owed $1,862. I took 20 days to pay, and at the end of the 20 days, I now owed them $1,884.06. So I have to subtract those two to get the interest. So the interest would be $1,884.06 minus $1,862. And that is $22.06. So again, I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like a lot. In 20 days, because you didn't pay off that balance, in 20 days, you owe an extra $22.06 is just kind of wasted money that you're throwing away because you're not paying off what you put on your card.